Namaskar, hello and a very warm welcome viewers. You're watching the special presentation of Sansad TV, Samvaad with your host Kriti Mishra. And in today's show, we have a very special guest, Petroleum and Natural Gas Minister, Mr. Hardeep Singh Puri. So welcome to Sansad TV and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So you're helming the responsibility of housing and urban affairs as well. But today I'll confine my questions to Petroleum Ministry. So you've said that oil marketing companies haven't raised prices since April 6, 2022, despite the international pressures. You've also said the opposition rule states have to reduce VAT. The opposition says that the government needs to reduce taxes, bear losses. While the political blame game continues, sir, we as consumers suffer. I completely buy your argument that this is beyond anyone, any government. These are international pressures. But do we see some kind of respite in future?
First of all, there is nothing that I have said or nothing that I can say on a sensitive issue like this if it is not anchored in hard reality and facts. If you're talking about the oil marketing companies, when it came to gas, all right, they took a big hit because we kept the gas prices pretty steady. I'm not saying that they are ideal, but when the Saudi CP or contract price went up by 303%, we allowed the gas price in the market to go up by only a small percentage. So the oil companies approached the government after that and said, we've taken a combined hit of 28,000 crores. And the government did compensate them up to 22,000 crores. Now, there are two ways you can meet the requirements of the consumer. One is you allow the oil marketing companies to raise prices and you give the consumer a consumption subsidy. Okay? Yeah. Now, we didn't do that. We kept the price steady. I don't want to go into exact precise figures because then the opposition people will scream even more. When it comes to crude oil imports, for which we are dependent 85% on imports, and petrol and diesel, international prices went up by a huge amount, by a huge figure. We kept ours fairly steady. Now, depending on which representative period you take. But you know what has happened? Those 3 or 4 oil companies, I'm talking about IOCL, HPCL, 2 others, as against a combined profit of 28,000 crores in H1 of the previous year, in H1 this year, they've taken a loss of 27,000 crores. Forgive me, it may be the other way around. 27,000 crore profit in H1 of last year and 28,000 crores. These are 2 facts which are there. I mean, these are all publicly available figures in the public domain, and there are balance sheets and the rest is etched literally in stone.
Absolutely, sir.
Let me complete this.
Please go ahead.
When it comes to Ujjwala, again another area where I had some semblance of opposition, but again it was not thought through. Where have we come on Ujjwala? We came on Ujjwala from a fact, first take gas connections overall. The country in 2014 had something like 14 crore connections. Today we have 31 crore connections plus. Ujjwala is a scheme we started in 2016. The first tranche went through very fast. Today we have about 9 crore connections. What is an Ujjwala connection? It is given to somebody below the poverty line. And they said, "Arey, Ujjwala mein pehle cylinder ke baad logon ne liya nahi." Not correct. The figures are, an average Ujjwala offtake by a normal size family, let's say a husband, wife, 2 children or 3 children, is 3.69. Now 3.69 cylinders is pretty good usage. So that thing was not. One of the gentlemen who's a leader of a party which doesn't have the figures to qualify as an opposition party, he said in parliament, aapne subsidy band kar di. Arey bhai, subsidy band nahi ki hai. When the international price, there was a 2-year pandemic, even longer period.
Yes.
In March 2020, crude oil prices came down to $19. Gas prices also crashed. When the price crashes, you don't have to give a subsidy. But when we found that Ujjwala number, we introduced another 1 crore connections. And I think today, after that, we are ready if you need 40,000-50,000 more. My reading as the line minister is that the Honorable Prime Minister would be willing to consider it provided there is a demand.
Yeah.
Now, from May of this year, madam, we have started giving people 200 rupees subsidy which goes direct into their account. So the subsidy has not been withdrawn. But to argue that you should be giving a subsidy when one is not required, all right, your and my perception on whether a subsidy is required or not. But look, this is a government which believes that benefits must flow to those most in need of it, that is Sarvodaya, Antyodaya, to the farthest first. And we ensure, even at the time when overall subsidies were not required, in the Northeast we were still providing subsidy to a remote far-flung area. Equally now, users get 200 rupees coming straight into their account. It's a direct benefit. Now, I want to make one more submission. It is the Prime Minister made a call that those who are not in need should voluntarily give up.
Yes.
And I think it met with a very positive public response, and frankly, that should be the spirit. But for an opposition party to ask for subsidy band kar di without knowing that subsidy to chal rahi hai, or for petrol prices, for instance, a very interesting discussion took place in Parliament the other day. You also used the word, how long will the consumer has been insulated. Look, left to me, if we could and we had the means, I would say petrol should be made free.
I'm sure.
But somebody has to pay for it.
Yeah.
85% of it is imported.
Yeah.
And the international price has skyrocketed.
Yes.
Little down now because of fears of recessionary condition. But I want to make another submission to you. What goes into the making of the final price at which you and I fill up at the petrol pump? It is the international price, the freight cost, the insurance cost, the exchange rate, refining margin, dealer's margin, and the central government's excise and the state government's VAT. Now, when the central government led by the Honorable Prime Minister felt that prices were too high, the Honorable Prime Minister decided on two occasions, November 2021 and May 2022, for the centre to reduce its excise. All right, price of petrol I think came down by 13 rupees as a result of that. And he appealed, and so did we. We appealed to all the states to join in that. What happened is that the BJP states did likewise. Once Union Territory of Delhi, decided not to do it. But you know what happened? The market then determines its own levels. People, if they were living in, let's say, Delhi, but used to go to work in Haryana or in Uttar Pradesh, whenever they were there, they would fill up tanks. So the the dealers suddenly discovered that the offtake from their petrol bunks suddenly came down by 25%.
Yeah.
It is in response to that pressure that the Delhi government brought the prices down. Now, one party claimed that they have not they have not increased the VAT since 2014.
Yeah.
But you're missing the point altogether. VAT is a percentage. And if the state is charging 31% VAT and the price is 100, then you get 31% on 100 as collection.
Sure.
So they made a whopping killing when the price went up. They're saying centre should reduce excise. I rest my case, centre did reduce excise. Centre reduced excise at a time when it was feeding 800 million people 3 meals of dry ration in a day, when it was producing 220 crores of vaccines for free distribution. So that is an artificial, false narrative which the opposition tried to create, and I'm sorry, they've fallen flat on that. Because facts can have to be countered with facts. Here we are talking about reduction. They said we haven't increased it. That's precisely the point. You haven't reduced it. Now look at the difference. In a BJP state, on an average, I think the VAT percentage is 17% they collect. They collect 32%. Now that explains why between state A and B, and I don't want to utilize, you're a channel of the parliament.
Yes.
Difference in petrol price between a state A and a state B, because there hasn't been reduction of VAT, can be as much as 10 rupees a litre. Now, if you fill up a normal car, let's say which has a capacity of 30-35 litres, normal, 10 rupees a litre is not insignificant.
So you said facts have to be countered with facts. I still remember, and most of us do, how you check the facts of an international anchor or an international platform. I have another angle to that question. Now, Ukraine-Russia war, of course, it has completely threatened the global energy security, disrupted the supply chains, and going forward, it has perhaps fractured the trading relationships. So you've been an illustrious diplomat. Going forward, do you think we need to recalibrate our strategy, or we have new avenues?
Madam, I would make one submission to you. The uncertainties in the global energy markets predate 24th February 2022. For anyone to suggest that the problem started on 24th February when the military action started by Russia or Ukraine, that's not correct. Global crude oil consumption per day is in the vicinity of 100 million barrels per day. If there is a 1% misalignment between demand and supply, price shoots up.
Of course.
Therefore, contrary to what we had been led to believe in 2021, when I newly became a minister, that it's only a question of time and by February of 2022, prices would align and they would come down. Now, you look at what happened in the world. During the pandemic, every economy, or those who could afford to certainly, one big economy pumped in $20 trillion of stimulus package into their economy. Now, even an undergraduate student of economics would tell you that once you pump in a large amount of money into an economy chasing the same set of goods and services by and large, you are producing an inflationary situation.
Absolutely.
So on top of an inflationary situation, if you have high oil prices, and this is something I told the major consumers who are friends of mine, said if you think you can have very high oil prices when the situation is already inflationary, you are, through policy-induced actions, actually encouraging the movement from an inflationary situation into a recessionary situation.
Right.
This is all discussion that we were having 6 months ago, 1 year ago. What happened after that? In May in Davos, I said you're not facing one crisis, you're facing three crises. The fertilizer crisis in many ways is equally serious as the fuel crisis. But you have a food crisis also, following from the fertilizer crisis.
Absolutely.
Now, today they would like to turn around and say, all right, we are happy with a higher oil price. Obviously, if you're a producer, it stands to reason. But equally, there is, what I submit to you, a self-fulfilling prophecy here. Because you are happy with a high price, you are also indirectly contributing towards a intensification of move towards a recessionary condition.
Yeah.
And when the recessionary condition comes, there is a fall in demand.
Right.
So, ghoom phir ke to, we are back there. What I find reassuring is that in a country like India, which is the fastest growing economy in the world, I'm not saying it to you, but I've been traveling last few days. Every airport is chock-a-block full. Every aircraft is chock-a-block full. Roads are chock-a-block full. And even at the height of the crisis, we did not allow, this is the important thing, a shortage of fuel to come and create a situation of anxiety. Even when there were torrential rains in the northeast, our oil companies were having their people carrying cylinders on their shoulders.
Agreed.
And how have we been able to manage it? Largely, I think there are 4 things we've done.
Yes, sir.
One is we've diversified the number of suppliers. We were importing, I think, from 27 countries.
That's right.
We are importing now from 39 countries. We are adding anyone who has any supplies in. In the process, Russia has moved from being a de minimis a small-time supplier up to the end of 31st March 2022, now to being one of the major 3-4 suppliers. Some months they're even in the lead position. We will buy oil from wherever we have to because we owe a moral duty to our consumers.
Absolutely.
You see what happened in countries where it's not just affordability. Madam, there is a question of availability.
Right.
So we have to ensure availability, we have to ensure affordability. Then the diversification of supplies has also been accompanied by a massive thrust in opening up exploration and production.
Right.
Out of the 3.5 million square kilometers of sedimentary area, we've opened up 1 million,
yes,
which was no-go area because either the Navy or the Coast Guard or ISRO, somebody had a problem with it. We've negotiated with them.
Right.
All right? We don't want to transgress into a national security issue, but they also have an understanding that we need to do exploration and production, and a million square kilometers is a lot of territory. Okay.
Of course.
Now, we have also moved, and then we moved very fast on the data, National Data Repository,
yeah,
as a result of which all the big players in the world, whether you're talking about BP, Shell, Chevron, Exxon, they're all coming here and they're at an advanced stage of coming. Next, madam, we have moved very fast in the area of biofuels.
that's true.
Let me give you an example. In 2014, our biofuel mix was, in spite of the best efforts, never crossed 1.5%. Today, we have crossed 10%. We've done it 5 months before time. 10% biofuel mixing at the rates prevalent then meant we saved 41,500
right,
crores in terms of crude oil imports. Also, it means we have been able to give 42,000 crores to our farmers.
Yeah.
We are making ethanol today from agricultural waste, from Pranali. We have at this time about 90 million liters of ethanol being produced from second generation technology. We are accelerating on compressed biogas. We have a very ambitious target of 5,000 SATAP plants.
Right.
But I think the real story, real game changer will come from green hydrogen.
Yes.
Indian companies are at the cutting edge of the research, of the investment. They have tied up with the electrolyzer manufacturers in the world. We have brought the cost of power down. It used to be 7 rupees something. Solar, we brought it down to what, 2 rupees or so. From 25 cents, we brought it down to 3 cents. No other country has done that. So if you have the water, and now people are talking of making, green hydrogen from seawater. No, not just, reverse osmosis and that kind. Seawater, if you can start making it from seawater revolution you have in hand.
Yes.
I think on the energy front, and this is important because energy is a critical driver of economic growth. On all fronts, we are working hard, but I think the results are showing. And let me give you the good news. In a few days' time, E20 as a pilot, 20% mixed biofuel will be available at the pumps. It's not all pumps. We are taking the target of 2030 for 20% blending on biofuels. We're going to do it by 2024-25. We are also, CNG. People used to tell me, no, but CNG rates have gone up. This will affect the CNG auto industry. I think overall there's been a 10% growth in the CNG industry. And if you look at what's happening in the ecosystem, the next rollout of cars are all electric vehicles. And everybody's coming to this with a vengeance.
That's true.
So the submission I make to you is government's responsibility is to ensure energy security, which means availability and affordability. All the other stakeholders, in our OMCs in particular, our private sector is also doing well, but we had to insulate the economy at a particular time. And some of the things we have discussed are part of that insulation.
Absolutely, sir. And before I end this conversation, these figures are very inspiring, sir. But the government also plans to become energy independent before we complete 100 years of our independence. Is that very ambitious given our import figures right now?
It is ambitious and it is not ambitious.
Okay.
I have learned in the 5 years plus that I've been a minister that if you wait for targets to come from the ground up, and by the time they reach the decision-making level, maybe you are within the range. But I find that the targets which the Prime Minister has set, okay, whether it's on environmental issues, what he said at COP26 at Glasgow, or this India will be in energy independent by 2047. Look, if your energy or your exploration and production goes up, you have another 1 million square kilometers where you will find the hydrocarbons.
Yeah.
You've got the basis on which you make a transition, and we are not diluting the transition even by a centimeter or by an inch.
That's true.
Because we are going into green hydrogen in a very big way, we are going into biofuels in a very big way. By 2024, 25, we'll have 20% mix of biofuels. But you know, why are we stopping at 20%? Because that is the amount of ethanol which the government guarantees as a buyback. So we calculated what is the amount of ethanol required for 20% based on current figures. It's about 1,000 crore liters. 1,000 crore litre. We were already making 455. Now we've intended to make the rest. But I have a feeling very soon, this inhibition we have on 20% limit, if enough ethanol is produced from alternate feeds, from maize, from agricultural waste, you will have a situation where people say, yeah, 20% pe kyun ruk rahe ho? The automobile industry will also adjust, and you will come into flexi fuel engines. Yesterday when I was at the India Energy Week, and I'm very happy we are having this conversation because we are planning a global event as part of our G20 presidency to hold a meeting of the India Energy Week, which will draw in more than 50 energy ministers, not only the G20 ones, the Asian ministerial, but more than 50 of the world's top CEOs, of the top companies, thousands of attendees. I mean, the figure will go up 20,000 plus. And yesterday we had a grand curtain raiser at the Bengaluru Palace. I think the buzz around is not only in India, but around the world, that India is where there is action. Because between today and 2047, since you 2040 or 2047, you mentioned that figure because Amrit Kal and 100 years as an independent nation. Madam, the issue is we will be a Viksit Desh, a developed country, no issue. But by 2047, you would have done certain things. ENP increase, your biofuels, your grid will become green. So the energy independence or total Atmanirbharta becomes doable.
Absolutely.
The limited submission I make is you have to work for it. It's not something you set a target and you can buy. But every part of the ecosystem, our oil marketing companies which have refineries, they're doing it. The other stakeholders, and I think the requisite government decisions to make that possible will also be forthcoming very shortly.
So I'll borrow your statement to end this conversation. India is where the action is. On that note, thank you so much for this candid conversation.
Thank you, madam.
Well, viewers, that's all we have for you in this edition. Thanks for watching and stay tuned to Sansad TV. Goodbye from my side for now.